Confidence. Throughout my lifetime, I have had confidence in all of my endeavors. Here is the reason, and I quote, "For the Lord shall be your confidence." Proverbs chapter 3, verse 26. As I look back over my life, I am convinced that my steps were spiritually orchestrated by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and that He continues to direct my paths. My spiritual faith was strengthened during my 4 years at Westminster College in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. During my professional career, the wind beneath my wings has been the inspiration provided by my wife Regina and our 3 daughters, Elisa, Alexis, and Elena. And in recent years, our 2 grandsons, Michael and Coltrane, and our 3 granddaughters, Kendall, Alana, and Corinne. Where I was raised on Mount Washington in the city of Beaver Falls, I believe the lifestyle there was excellent preparation for the real world. And what I'm talking about is this, that our family was one of perhaps 4 or 5 black families in a community in which nationalities were in abundance. I recall families such as Ehrenberg, Damaska, Orovitz, Mikowski. As I grew older, I found myself in environments that sort of mirrored, for want of a better term, my Mount Washington community. I recall in 7th grade, I had the first male school teacher that I had ever experienced so far as the classroom is concerned. I recall that when our first algebra test was given in grade 7, I had missed that morning of school, and I attended the afternoon session. So I took the test during the afternoon, and as I recall, there may have been perhaps 20 or so questions, and I answered all the questions correctly. And the teacher called me after class and said, "Who gave you the answers?" I said, "Nobody gave me the answers." He said, "You want me to believe that you can do this kind of work?" I said, "Sure, I can do it." He said, "Well, we'll see. You stay there. I'm going to make up another test for you." So he made up another test. He said, "Take this test." I took the test, and out of the approximate 30 questions, I missed 1. But I never had any more trouble from that teacher the rest of my days in junior high school. During my higher education, which included Westminster College and Dickinson School of Law, I was one of 2 black students in the class. None of that bothered me in the least, and I attribute it to the fact, by and large, that in the neighborhood in which I was raised in Mount Washington, Beaver Falls, our family was in a racial minority, but we got along fine with the various nationalities who comprised prized the neighborhood. So throughout my life, I experienced knowing that I could do what I set my mind to do, and I could get along with anybody, I thought, despite their ethnicity or racial background. So I never really experienced any feeling of inferiority as such, and just living life as I determined to live it. He said, I'll take you up to meet the football coach someday and just introduce you around. So he took me to Westminster, and we met with head coach Harold E. Burry, and as a result of that meeting and a subsequent meeting or two, I was awarded a 4-year football scholarship at Westminster that was changed the first day of football camp when president of the college, Dr. Will W. Orr, explained to me in quite a bit of detail that the scholarship was being changed from athletic to academic because of my high school academic achievements. In 1957, when I was a junior at Westminster, I was shocked to learn that my father had passed away on his job at the steel mill, and that it was because of a heart attack. Once I arrived home and was home for a day or so, I determined that I was quitting college and I was going to get a job in the steel mill and help the family out financially. As I recall, I stayed away from Westminster for a couple of weeks, and one day I was sitting on our front porch with some of my siblings, and we saw a cloud of dust arising and a big white car coming toward our house. None of us could imagine who that was until the car stopped in front of our house, and I saw Dr. Will W. Orr, the president of Westminster College, get out of the car and start walking toward me. He beckoned to me, and I approached him as he came near, and he looked at me and he said, "Tookie, I'm not asking you to come back to Westminster. I'm telling you, you'll mean much more to your family once you get your college degree and go on to whatever career you choose." He said, "I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you're going to get a job maybe in a steel mill and help the family that way." And he convinced me that that was not the solution. I was at Westminster. One of my football teammates called me aside one day. He said, "Hey, Took," my nickname being Tookie. He said, "See this kid over here?" I said, "Yeah, what about him?" He said, "He's afraid of black people." I said, "So what?" He said, I want you to go over to him and just see how he reacts." I said, "All right." So I went over to this young freshman. I said, "Hi, how you doing?" "Oh," but he said, I'm fine. And what I did, I took my arm and rubbed it against his arm, and I said, "You see, that doesn't rub off." "Oh no, I didn't think it would, I said, well, I says, pleased to meet you, and I said, hope I see you around campus. I want you to know that as the days wore on, I could not get rid of that fellow. He took such a liking to me. He'd follow me around campus and want to be where I was. And I finally told him, look, I appreciate your friendship, but I don't want you tagging along with me all the time. He and I became very good friends, but I did yield to the request that I confront him, and I think the young man came to realize that the hue of my outer epidermis should not be any barrier to our friendship. I learned that if I paid 25 cents, I could take a shuttle bus from the military base into downtown Augusta, which I thought would be quite a treat to see what downtown Augusta, Georgia was all about. And I paid my 25 cents, seated myself on the bus, and after we traveled into Augusta, Georgia, another black soldier from a seat that was more to the rear of the bus came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder. He said, James, we get off here. I said, no, I'm not getting off here. I said, I want to go all the way down into the heart of Augusta. I said, we're just on the outskirts. I said, I want to see all the big buildings and everything. He said, James, we get off here. I said, Monroe, I told you I am not getting off here. I want to go all the way into downtown Augusta and see all the sights. He said, James, you better get your black so-and-so off this bus. He said, the man ain't gonna let you ride no further. And I could tell by the look on Monroe's face that he was serious. I had never experienced anything like this in my life, so I got off the bus, and there goes my bus that I paid 25 cents for, but I had to get off at that corner, and Monroe and I walked across the street to a recreational facility, and inside I noticed it was a salt and pepper type crowd, half black, half white. I said, Monroe, I don't get it. What goes? He said, James, those white folk are allowed to come over into this black section of town. He said, but believe me, you better not set foot in the white section. He said, you get yourself in serious trouble. Needless to say, I never took a bus into Augusta again after that during my tenure in Fort Gordon, Georgia. I never experienced that. My wildest dreams had not visualized it. But this was somewhere in either late 1963 or early 1964, and the racial climate was not what it could have been, and what perhaps it may be today, greatly improved. A white fellow from the Atlanta area had agreed that I could ride with him from the military base in Fort Gordon, Georgia, to the airport in Atlanta, where I would board a plane coming back home to Pennsylvania. And en route, somewhere between, as I recall it, Augusta and, of course, Atlanta, he stopped for gas at a service station. While he was getting gas, I told him I wanted to go to the restroom. And as I was approaching the restroom area, I saw the first sign sticking out to the left of the building. The sign said ladies. So walked a little further, and I saw a second sign said men. But much to my surprise, as I was about to enter the men restroom, I saw a third sign, a sign I had never encountered before in my life said colored. So I walked to where the sign was that said colored. All three of the signs stuck out the left side of the building, but the entrance to the color was at the rear. So I went back to the rear of the building, opened the door, and once I saw the filth and the grime and the debris inside that facility, for want of a better term, I refused to utilize it, and I went back to the car and began talking to my driver, and he could tell I was upset. My pride would not allow me to use that so-called restroom facility, and I told him I'd wait till we got to the airport, and he said, James, I wouldn't get too excited if I were you. He says, things are just a little bit different down here. When I sought public office as a judge, I think my athletic involvement and my involvement in academic circles and not in the least my involvement in church circles were assets for me. And so I think a lot of people were surprised when I first ran for office seeking the judicial seat, the first office I had ever attempted to gain in any political race, because I was content to be devoid of politics. Politics never really appealed to me, but that was the avenue I would have to travel in order to become a judge. And not being really familiar with political standards, so to speak, when it came time to have some placards and signs made up advertising my running for office, I went to the sign maker, and he said, what kind of logo would you like? And he put out some different examples for me: the American flag, blindfolded lady justice, scales of justice, and others. I reached in my pocket and took out my checkbook and tore off a corner of one check, and I said, here's what I want as my logo. And what I showed him was a picture of a dove with the olive branch in its mouth. And he said to me, he says, what are you trying to do? Mix religion with politics? And I just looked at him. I said, you asked what I wanted as my logo? That's what I want as my logo. And throughout my political campaign, that was what I utilized. And I didn't perhaps have the wisdom to know that that would open the floodgates of Christians to come to my side in the election. And I'm convinced that the Christian population and Christian principles in general were the springboard for my ultimately being first appointed and then elected as judge. Although the path has not always been straight, this kickoff I returned as a Titan in 1956, over 50 years ago, may symbolically illustrate the manner in which I have endeavored to run this race of life by keeping my eye on the prize until I finish my course.